What's up, ladies and gents? We're going to talk about 5-5. Has to do with 30, 60, 90 triangles. It's very similar to the 45, 45, 90, except two of the sides are not going to be the same. It is not an isosceles right triangle. This is going to be a right triangle, but it is not going to be isosceles. It's going to be scalene, which means all three sides are going to be different values. And here's the pattern. Please focus in on this. This is going to be the most important page. Everything else is just going to be examples. If you need to go slower, pause your video, rewind it, go back through it, whatever. I'm going to try to go through it quickly for those who can go quickly. Those who need to go slower, take your time. This right here is going to be the key to this whole thing, because this side right here that's across from it is going to be what everything else is based off of. You'll hear me refer to the key a lot. We always go back to this one. That'll be later on. But here's what I mean by that. If this is A, to get to the one that's across from the 60, you are going to multiply. In fact, here, let's do some different colors here. So the key we'll keep in green. I'll try to keep that throughout this. Try to keep these colors the same. We'll do red for this. To get to this, you know this is 60. To go from here to here, again, just like the 45, 45, you're going to multiply, but not by the square root of 2. If you notice, it's multiplied by the square root of 3. Now, if I want to go backwards from, if they give me this side and I want to go back to the key, remember, you always go back to the key first. We'll kind of talk about that in the examples. This time, you're going backwards instead of multiplying. You're going to divide by the square root of 3. And finally, the other one that we can talk about is the hypotenuse, which I'll do in blue. Okay, this is going to be twice the value of A. So it's pretty simple. To go this way, you just times by 2. If I give you this value right here, and you want to go back to the key, you would divide by 2. Okay, so crossed from the 90 is going to be the 2A. Cross from the 60 is going to be the square root of 3. We'll refer back to this a couple times, and then we're going to keep moving on. So here's some examples. All right, notice in this one, they gave me the one that's across from the 30. They gave me that one. That is my key. The one across from the 90 was 2 times that. Don't worry about this A. That's just the length of that. It could be A, B, C, D, E, F, G, whatever. We're going to refer to that 2A as twice of this value right here. And then we had red. This, to get this way, was to, this is the 60-degree angle. Across from it is the one that is A square roots of 3. So this one's a very simple one. I started off with the one that was the easiest. If we want to get this value right here, you just take it and multiply by 2. So 4 times 2 would be 8. The value of A equals 8. If I wanted to start, if I wanted to go from here to here, again, I'm multiplying because I'm starting at the key by the square root of 3, and I just get that B equals 4 square roots of 3. So I'll erase all this now. Kind of make it a little simpler, hopefully. This, you're going to multiply by the square root of 3. This, you're going to multiply by 2 to get that value. That's what this right here, I left that up there for you to refer to it. Okay, cross from the 90 is 2A, cross from the 60 is square roots of 3. So that's how I'm getting those values right there. Now, it does get a little trickier as far as your algebra skills. That's it for geometry. But we are going to do some other ones just to mess with this. So here's how I start this. I look at this right here and I see this is the one that's across from the 90. That's my 2A one. Well, I want the key. My key is always across from the 90. So this right here is my key. That's the one all the other ones are based off of. So if this is the 2A one, and I want to go back, I'm working backwards. I'm not multiplying this time. I'm going to divide by 2. And when I get that, I'm going to see that y equals 4 divided by 2, which is 2. So I have my key being 2 here. And now if I want to go this way, which is the one that's across from the 60, I'm going to multiply by the square root of 3, and I'm going to get that x equals 2 square roots of 3. Nothing too tricky as far as the algebra yet. Those are my two values. That's what they were asking me to solve for. Again, I've left this up here to kind of help you to refer to. So here we go. First thing to always establish is what one did they give me? Did they give me the key? If they didn't give me the key, I need to always go back. Here's the 30-degree angle. That would mean this is my key. It did not get me that value, so I need to find that out as fast as possible. They gave me the 60-degree. That one is the one where if I'm coming from here, I'm multiplying by the square root of 3, but they did not give me that, so I'm working backwards. So if I want to work backwards here, I would be going from here to here, which means I wouldn't be multiplying, but dividing by the square root of 3. We've had some practice on these a little bit, so hopefully you see that v equals 5 square roots of 3 divided by the square root of 3. Again, the square roots of 3 over square root of 3 would cancel out, and I'd be left with 5 would be my value. Again, nothing too tricky yet for our algebra. So this is 5. Now I need to find the one that's across from the 90. The one across from the 90 is always 2 times the key. Well, 5 is my key, so u is going to equal 5 times 2, which equals 10. So there are my values that they wanted me to find. Alright, now we get into some, a little bit, not too much. As soon as you see fractions, a lot of you freak out. No need to do that. Go ahead and label on here. This is the 60. So this is the one that's across. So that means if I'm going to be going to this one, which is the key, I always label my key. It helps me figure out which one I need to solve for first. I have to figure out, okay, that one to get backwards, I would have to divide by the square root of 3. Okay, so I work over here and I go, okay, 9 square roots of 3 over 2, and if I divide that by the square root of 3, here's the fraction work that we want to talk about. We don't like to do... Sorry, I'm pausing that. Sorry about that, I paused it while they did that announcement. Alright, so here's the fraction work. Hopefully you remember, keep, change, flip, or some kind of thing of that. We do not like to divide by with fractions. So I change this to multiplication. I flip this, which is square root of 3 over 1. I flip that, and so I can make that 9 square roots of 3 over 2 times 1 over the square root of 3. And then hopefully you remember from like 6th grade, 7th grade, or 8th grade, if you have one in the top and one in the bottom, you can cancel them out. So I have this that can cancel out with this, and then I'm left with 1 times 9, which is 9 over 2. So I'm left with 9 halves is my key. 9 halves is my key. Now if I want to go to this value, I know that I'm going forwards and I'm timesing it by 2, because that's the one that's across from 90. That's the 2a one. There's my a. I have to times it by 2, so I take 9 halves and I times it by 2. And again, we remember fraction, we want to make 2 fractions. So I made 2 a fraction by putting it over 1. The 2's can cancel, and I'm left with 9 over 1, which equals 9. So a equals 9, that was this value up here, and b equals 9 halves. Again, if you need to go slower, watch this video again. Going back, I'm going through quite a bit of examples to try to help us out. So here we go. First thing, again, always find the key. This is my 30 degrees. That means y is my key. They did not give that to me. So I need to say, okay, this value they gave me, which is across from the 90, that's my 2a one. How do I get back to a, which is my key? You would have to not multiply, but divide by 2. So I take 7. Y equals 7 divided by 2, which is 7 halves. Perfectly acceptable to leave it as that. I then take that, and to get from the key to here, you would multiply by the square root of 3. I'm going forwards on that way. I'm not going backwards. So I get that x equals 7 halves times, make it a fraction when you're multiplying it by a fraction, square root of 3 over 1. I end up with 7 square roots of 3 over 2. That is a perfectly acceptable answer. That's one answer. That's the second answer. The square root is not in the denominator, so I do not need to do any of that rationalizing that we talked about. It's good to go. Done. All right. So this one again, this one they did give me the key. This is the 30. They gave me this square root of 6. So let's go ahead and just go to the x first, just because x comes before y. That is my 2a1 because it's across from the 90. That's how I know which one's the 2a. This is the a square roots of 3. This is the key. They gave me the key this time. No working backwards. So I'm multiplying each time, and I'm multiplying each time. So let's do x first. Simplest one. 2 times square root of 6 is just 2 square roots of 6. And then this one, y gets a little bit tricky because you have to go square root of 6 times square root of 3, which since they're both under square root signs, they're both underneath this square root sign, I can actually multiply them, and that becomes a square root of 18. Then I have to rationalize it, which means I break this down, and it becomes 9 times 2. I don't like this way of teaching it, but I'll teach it for this video purpose. If you want me to teach you the other way, we've kind of gone over in my class the way that I like to do square roots. Once I see that that's a perfect square, I can do square root of 9 times the square root of 2. Square root of 9 has a square root of 3, so I get 3 square roots of 2. So that's my y equals, and that's my x equals. Again, if you need to go through this again, go through it a little bit slower. Take your time and pause the videos, but last one. In this one, they gave me the 60, which is not the key. This is my 30. Okay, that's my key. Remember, I always go back to this key first. So how do I get from here backwards? You have to divide by the square root of 3, which means I end up with the square root of 15 divided by the square root of 3. Well, I can actually break this square root of 15 into the square root of 5 times the square root of 3 over the square root of 3, because 5 times 3 is the same thing as the square root of 15. These two things are equivalent. They're the same thing, but what allows me to do is cancel the square root of 3's out, so I realize that the square root of 5 is this answer, so y equals the square root of 5. Now I'm going forwards, and I'm going to times that by 2 because that's the one across from the 90. So I take x and equals 2 square roots of 5. You'll have practice on that tomorrow in class. Other than that, just maybe go through it a couple times, take your time. That's all it. Have a good night. See you tomorrow.